want to tell you how a dress can change the world. That probably sounds like a really bold statement, but let me try and walk you through why it's not so crazy. First, I need to back up a bit, though. It was around 2005 when I started learning about the issue of human trafficking. And as I hope many of you are aware, slavery today exists in every city around the world, around every major sporting event, in brickyards and brothels, truck stops, massage parlors, and many, many other places. It's estimated that over 35 million people are currently trapped in slavery. And of those, 50% are children and 70% are women. Slavery takes many faces internationally, from the sweatshop labor of the garment industry to the sex tourism of underdeveloped nations to the underground network of brothels here in the US. The global sex trade is the fastest growing criminal industry in the world. It is massive and it is thriving. Women and girls are being bought and sold around the world like products. And when I started hearing about this years ago, it started a fire inside me. You see, when I was a little girl, I was molested. And for years, I carried the weight of guilt and shame and these questions of, do I matter? Am I disposable? Can someone love me? It took years for me to heal and forgive and move forward. And to this day, when I hear of what's happening to women and girls in the world, the fire inside me grows stronger. And so when I first started hearing about this years ago, and I felt an urgency to do something about it, I naturally looked at my own unique talents and gifts and interests for a way to engage. And that is where for years I kept hitting a wall, because my interest didn't seem to line up with making a difference. I'm not a lawyer, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a social worker, I'm not a cop. What I am is someone who's interested in fashion and trend analysis, writing and wordplay. And my interest just felt shallow in the grand scheme of things. And for years, I just felt powerless. And I remember thinking, there's nothing I can do about this. But then in 2009, everything began to change. And I didn't even know it at the time. It began with a dress, actually. I was in college and feeling stifled by the routine of academia. And so I decided I needed a creative outlet, and I decided to create a personal style challenge for myself. I decided I would try wearing a dress every day for a month. And the next full month when I came up with this idea happened to be December. And since I love puns, I came up with a name for it. I came up with the name Dressember. And I loved that so much that I had to do it at that point. And so I did it. I wore a dress every day for a month, and I never planned to do it again. But then the next year, some of my girlfriends brought it up and wanted to join in on Dressember with me. And so I did it again with them. And then the next year, my girlfriend's girlfriends brought it up to them and wanted to participate in Dressember. And so by that third year, when women I didn't even know were wanting to participate in Dressember, I realized that maybe people weren't just humoring me. Maybe I was onto something. I had a good idea here. And so I also, meanwhile, noticed what the Movember Foundation was doing, the Movember campaign, challenging men to grow mustaches in the month of November and raising millions of dollars for prostate cancer research. And so that got me thinking, maybe I can use Dressember to raise some money for an anti-trafficking organization. And so in 2013, I aligned Dressember with IJM, International Justice Mission, which is a global human rights organization that works to rescue and restore victims of slavery and other forms of violent oppression. And I remember thinking, We are gonna go big, we're gonna aim high, we're gonna try to raise $25,000, which felt like a huge, scary goal to me at the time because I did not have that kind of money. And I thought I could fail very publicly here, but I wanted to give it a try. And so very timidly, we went into this. And then we hit my huge, scary goal on the third day of the campaign. And I realized something that started as a few girls in Orange County wearing dresses for fun had become a global community of over 1,200 women in 32 countries who collectively raised over $165,000 in a month. That was live for that. Last year was our second year, and we doubled participation at over 2,600 women registered and nearly tripled the amount of funds we raised at over $462,000. So it's been incredible growth, and it's caused me to realize that something that started as a silly idea born out of boredom has created a global movement. Earlier this month, we announced our second partnership with a wonderful organization called A21. So in December 2015, we're going to be supporting IJM and A21. And A21 is another incredible anti-trafficking organization that focuses on prevention through education, protection and restoration of survivors, and the prosecution of traffickers. So it's really exciting to see December grow into a collaborative foundation where we have a goal of creating a world where justice for the poor and the abused isn't only possible, but it's real life. And it's also exciting to see the work of these organizations up close firsthand myself. So last summer, or a year ago last summer, I was able to visit one of IJM's offices. I got to visit their office in Guatemala City, and the IJM staff in Guatemala City focuses on cases of child sexual assault. So these are horrifying cases where a child has been raped or violently abused by an acquaintance or maybe their mother's boyfriend, or in more cases than we can understand, a blood relative. And every few months, the IJM staff in Guatemala City does something really incredible. They hold something called a hero ceremony, where they invite the children who have recently testified in court against their abusers, and they honor their courage for having done so. And I had the extreme privilege of being able to participate in one of these hero ceremonies. And they told us a bit about the day, how it was going to go, that they would call up the children one by one, and we would put a little pin on them that said, "I am a hero," in Spanish. So they told us about how the day was going to go, but honestly, nothing could have prepared me for what I saw when I walked in that room. There were about 30 kids, most of whom didn't look any older than 10, and some who looked as young as 5. There was a 12-year-old girl who had a 2-month-old baby. And I found out later that she did not know who the father of her child was, because within the same couple weeks, she had been raped by an acquaintance, and by her grandfather, and by her own father. Being in that room, looking these kids in the eyes, and honoring their bravery for testifying in court, sometimes in the face of violent threats, I felt the fire there just growing inside me. And yet, what was really remarkable is what filled the room was not a sense of despair. It was not a sense of defeat. Somehow, what filled the room was a sense of triumph and honor. And I realized that these children's stories are continuing and bending toward redemption because of the work of International Justice Mission. I think It's human nature to look any huge injustice in the face and think there is nothing I can do about this. I don't have the money, the power, the influence. I am not enough. I felt that way, but I saw what I thought was this silly idea: create a community of like-minded people who together are creating change. I have seen my idea outgrow me to the point that I am running to keep up with the size of it. And Dressember has been a success in large part because of its collaborative nature. I've seen what happens when we look for connections between our interests and passions and invite others into that journey. Last January, I was able to witness the power of collaboration firsthand. I got to visit Los Angeles Christian School, which is an inner-city charter school founded by World Impact. And I was invited to visit the school after a group of 18 girls and boys participated in Dressember. The girls wore dresses and the boys wore bow ties, and together they raised over $800. And I sat in on their weekly assembly and listened as these 3 girls talked about what the Dressember campaign meant to them. And I want to share that with you. They said, "We should be the voice for those who don't have a voice." They said, "We should stand up for girls like us who are waiting to be rescued." They said, "We can be the generation who puts an end to this injustice." As kids, we believe that anything is possible and that we can change the world. But then years go by, and somewhere along the line, we start believing that we are powerless to change anything. We stop believing that one person's choices can create any changes. Because we believe we can't be super advocates, we stop advocating at all. I can't tell you what an incredible and humbling experience it has been to have prayed for years for a way into this fight and see God create a pathway for not only me, but thousands of women just like me who have felt the same way and have been ready to take action. People without money, without power, without influence, but strength in solidarity. I want to share a short video with you that shows how Dressember creates an opportunity for everyday advocacy through challenging participants to think about their own power in a new way.
The world's greatest injustices have always been fought with courage and creativity.
Some of the boldest acts of fighting injustice have been the most innovative.
Rosa Parks used public demonstration.
Helen Keller used storytelling.
Oprah used influence.
It takes courage to believe that you can change things.
It takes courage to create a way to let light into the darkness.
Dressember is about shining that light.
Dressember is an opportunity to advocate for the inherent dignity of all people.
Remembering that the things that unite us
are greater than the things that divide us.
Remembering that courage is contagious.
Join us this December as we declare freedom for all women.
Together with thousands of others around the world,
we will celebrate true femininity,
Her courage,
her strength,
her dignity.
For 1 month, with a dress as our flag,
We will carve a path to a better future for women everywhere.
So today, I have 3 challenges for you. First, I want to challenge you to consider the possibility that every decision you make is an opportunity to advocate. That the things you wear, the things you buy, the things you say, there are 1,000 tiny opportunities to advocate throughout your everyday. Through Dressember, I've seen what happens when thousands of women make a tiny choice to wear a dress together. And together they create huge change. Because of the woman wearing it, a dress can change the world. Secondly, I want to invite you to ask yourself, what do you like to do? And what are you passionate about? I'm not sure what's in this room. Maybe you have interests that don't seem to line up with your passions. Maybe you like cooking and you're passionate about immigration reform, or you like singing and you're passionate about elder abuse. You like basketball and you're passionate about illiteracy. You like writing and you're passionate about foster care. You like making jewelry and you're passionate about homelessness. I'm not sure what God can do with those seemingly dissimilar passions, but I know that I like dresses and words, and I'm passionate about restoring dignity to women. And for years, I thought I had to choose between my unique interests and my passion for people, but it wasn't a matter of choice. You don't have to choose. For me, it was a silly idea with a little bit of courage that led to a worldwide movement. Who knows what silly, world-changing ideas could come from this room? And thirdly, I want to take us a little further by challenging you to think of not only your interests, but also your disappointments in a new way. As I experience more of God's redemptive heart in my own life, I'm learning that not only does he want to use the things I'm passionate about to connect me with his kingdom work, but he is also very interested in my pain and disappointments to propel me deeper. For most of us, we have no trouble recalling our greatest disappointments. The times when life has left us feeling defeated, devastated. Illness, disease, divorce, death, rejection. There are so many opportunities to be hurt. And just as significantly, there are 1,000 tiny daily disappointments that ping us from every direction. And often we weave a thread together from the bigger disappointments that they cause us to interpret all the smaller disappointments in such a way that they are colored, and we start telling ourselves these giant untruths. And everyone's look different, but they might be something like, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy of love. I'm a failure. God doesn't have good things for me. There's one thread in my life that I want to share with you at the risk of being very vulnerable. It's a thread that started very early in my life and has been a big one. When I was around 2 years old, my mom left my dad, and she left him full custody of 4 children, which, as you can imagine, left me feeling very emotionally and literally abandoned. My whole life, I've struggled to see myself as not missing some essential piece that everyone else has. This creeps into the way I process friendships and relationships, social interactions, and I often struggle with feeling that I am enough for people. I struggle with feeling worthy, and so I try to be useful. I struggle with feeling deserving of God's love and grace, and so I strive to be enough, to do enough, to deserve it. I share that with you now to show you how I believe God has connected the dots in my life. He's taken this thread of disappointment and a giant untruth in my life and woven in me a heart that breaks for those who are invisible in our world. For the girls who are only useful when they are performing. The girls who are powerless against their exploiters and who are carrying shame that they shouldn't be. I really don't want to trivialize their pain in any way by comparing it to my social ennui. But I do just draw this connection to show you how the things that you think are a liability in your life are actually an asset. You know, we want things to be clean and logical, and it makes sense to us that once we get ourselves together, that's when we'll have success. that's when God will bless us. That's when God will use us. But God says his strength is perfect in our weakness, not our togetherness. There is a kind of energy in pain, and I believe it can be directed to destroy you or to propel you. In the Phillips translation of James 1, we are told that when all kinds of trials crowd into your lives, don't resent them as intruders, but welcome them as friends. Just think about that for a second. An intruder barges into your house, and you welcome it as a friend. I'm a bit of a worrywart, so I spend way too much time thinking about someone breaking into my house, so I have a bit of a plan that I'll share with you. If someone breaks into my house, plan A is to grab my cell phone and hide in the closet and call the police. Plan B, if I'm feeling gutsy, is to craft a rope ladder out of knotted sheets and propel myself down the side of my house to safety. And then plan C, if all else fails and is totally necessary, I will engage in strategic pressure point combat. But in all seriousness, though, when an intruder or an unexpected source of pain arrives in our lives, the natural response is to hide or run or fight. But this passage tells us to welcome a trial, welcome an intruder as a friend. And how can a source of a wound be your friend? If we're asked to welcome wounds, I believe we have a choice. We can respond to pain by retreating, resisting, resenting, or we can trust that somehow God, in his great redemptive plan, can redeem our pain and use it to reach others in similar pain. I do want to be clear here, though. I'm not saying don't heal. I believe that God is a great redeemer and a great healer. I believe that he grieves to see us in pain. But just as grievous to him is unredeemed pain. So I want to leave you with a challenge to ask yourself, how do your interests, your passions, and your disappointments tie together? And how could God be inviting you deeper into his kingdom work through your past and present pain? Perhaps God wants to use your greatest disappointments to change someone else's life. Thank you.
I think we have time before our lunch break for one question. If there's one question for Blythe.
Hi, my name is Jared again. With the idea of trending, I know trends come and go. You talked about Movember and all these things. What was the significance of the idea of the dress in and of itself? Because I'm trying to understand, and I think that would lend to a better understanding of getting people to do things and finding that commonality. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, as I told the story, it was a bit of an accident, that link between the dress specifically and this campaign. But in retrospect, I mean, I believe God knew what he was doing the whole time and just smiling the whole way. I can see a lot of connections between a symbol of femininity traditionally with the fight to restore and reclaim what that means to women everywhere. And that can be a hot button issue. That idea of femininity, just saying the word, can make people nervous. But if we allow the possibility that femininity can mean so many different things to so many different women, and that God shaped us all so differently, and that expression looks so differently for every person, then I think it's okay to take one possible symbol of it and encourage women to embrace it for a month. there's also an incredible sacrifice for women who don't wear dresses and maybe find it offensive to their own expression of femininity to wear a dress every day for a month, that the women who do choose to engage in it and participate, it's just incredible, their stories of, I did this because I care about these women, and it was a sacrifice to me. Does that kind of answer your question? In terms of trends, I mean, hopefully the dress will stick around for a few more years. But I certainly think it's just as relevant, if not, well, equally relevant as a mustache to men's health. Hopefully. I don't know. I see that connection. But.
Why don't we all thank Bylthe?
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this message. Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Learn more at biola.edu.